Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger.
Hello, Phil, and happy Friday to everybody out there.
Happy Friday out there, everyone. Mike, we're going to start right out with another game of hypotheticals. PHAROAH. I'm going to give you 4 people.
Oh, boy.
Okay. PHAROAH. You can be any pharaoh.
Any pharaoh of Egypt.
Yeah, any of these things, you can be whoever.
Okay.
You'll be a pharaoh, Roman emperor, king of England, emperor of China.
Oh, gosh. Well.
Pharaoh, Roman emperor, king of England, emperor of China.
Well, so I'll give my rationale on this. Those 4 choices. I'm going to eliminate the emperor of China largely because I'm least familiar with that. To go back to talking about in relationship to some of the world travels that I've done, I've spent a considerable amount of time both in the quote Roman Empire areas on both sides of the Mediterranean and all the way around, and obviously because of where we are and in history with the United States, I know a fair amount about the kingdom or king queens of England, and so I'm pretty familiar with that one. And then the pharaohs, I spent an enormous amount of time in Egypt as well. So. Which was another empire that stretched actually quite a bit beyond even Egypt. So, interesting. I mean, I could take the easy way out here and say,
I thought I knew for sure who you're going to pick, and now I'm doubtful. And you're
not sure.
Yeah, it was only one reason. But go ahead.
That's probably because I'm not sure. Wow.
Okay, so I'll give you mine and let you think about it for a while.
Yeah. Let me hear yours.
Okay, so the only reason why the Emperor of China is knocked out first is because of location. Okay. If I'm looking at lifestyles, he comes in right there with I'll give away who my one is, but he would rank higher for lifestyle, the Roman Empire. Plus, I like Asian food. The first person out of my list is the King of England. I mean, boring, blah.
And by and large, not so much recently, but man, they got whacked off like there was nobody's business. That was a pretty tough role.
If I'm going to take somebody's life and I'm going by the stereotypical thoughts and ideas I have of leaders of each of these, the cornball of them is the King of England. So, that's out.
Yeah.
So that leaves me with the Pharaoh and the Roman Emperor. Yeah. Now, from a power standpoint,
by the way, that's where I was. I'm on board with you here. I've been debating between those 2.
So let me tell you who I thought you would pick. I thought you would pick the Roman Empire, and the only reason is because the closest to a nomadic society was the Roman Empire.
For sure.
So you could get some traveling in.
Yep.
So that's why I thought you would pick the Roman Empire. But my choice is Pharaoh. Okay. I'm just looking at it, like I said, from my lifestyles of the rich and famous. And Roman Empire is close, but even some of the things that I would say positive about the Roman Empire, they took it from Egypt. They got the thoughts, the ideas, the philosophies, all of those things, plumbing, all kinds of things. So it's an easy one for me. Pharaoh.
Yep, I can see that. I love the Romans excelled at the architecture. The Romans excelled at building things. And not to say that the Egyptians didn't either.
When did they all of a sudden have this rise in architecture? after visiting Egypt.
Well, yes, they conquered that area.
That's
the
what
north
I'm
of
saying.
Africa. So I've seen, actually, it's funny you say that. I've seen more Roman ruins south of the Mediterranean than north, because I've been through Algeria, Tunisia, Libya.
Makes sense to me.
All of those countries, and yeah, there's Roman ruins all over that.
But what I'm saying, even like if you turned on any documentary right now, one of the first things they're going to talk about with Romans is how awesome their infrastructure was. But most of the things that they're getting credited for predate them with the Egyptians, and they didn't start doing them until they met the Egyptians. I think it's pretty much common knowledge the stealing of math, architecture, all types of science, everything. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yep, understand.
But just a ball in life. I like the clothes. They got the best clothes. I'd have on one of them outfits like Yul Brenner.
We're going to a toga party.
All right, audience. We are literally trying to put off the elephant in the room. We could have talked about this the whole time, and I think we might end up doing that. Mike, the elephant in the room is the speech that we just listened to that Trump gave to Congress. I'm going to leave this way wide open in the beginning, or do you want me to give a brief what happened, or you going to dig right in and tell me what
well, let's be honest. I think everybody knows pretty much. Look, right before we went live today, Phil, for you guys listening out there, Phil sent me an article. I think CBS News did it, and it was a poll. Now, I'm going to preface this because if you know anything about polls, they're obviously always skewed. So there was a poll that said that, largely the audience was overwhelmingly positive about what Trump said during, I'll call it the State of the Union. I mean, maybe it wasn't, but that's basically what it was.
So briefly, now, this is a CBS poll.
Yes.
And I chose that poll because
they're liberal.
They are right. They are noted to have actually this crazy percentage of bad news that they do against Trump.
Yes. The problem is the flaw in the poll, obviously, is that, and I think it admits that somewhere in there, is that a very heavy percentage of the people that listened to the entire speech were on the right? So there was a much less audience involved from the left. However, it was what I did notice about the poll was that there was a large portion of independent, what people called and identified as independent voters, and they were listening. And still, the poll was largely positive, meaning that the speech was viewed as positive. So, to me, that is another indicator of what you and I have talked about on a bunch of podcasts already, that right now Trump is popular, and he's popular largely because of the independents in the middle are still tending to skew towards that side.
So I want to address that, and this is my opinion, Mike. So you tell me what you think. That I think it was 23% was independents on some of them. They're in the 20s, which is crazy. I believe it's just like what I thought before the election. There are a lot of people who are still not comfortable being on the phone, being in front of a camera with a mic in there and saying, I'm with Trump.
Yeah.
And
so we saw that in his first term too. I mean, that's been a Trump. But
just think about, Mike. We've been during this time he's been running. We've been on the East Coast. We've been on the West Coast. We've been all over these United States, right? And we've talked to people who are Trumpers, but they were talking to us about it.
Sure.
But if you didn't know it, you might even actually think they were liberal. You know, some of them were even social media people. The whole way they carry themselves, you would swear they were liberal. So my point is, I think that 20. I don't think there's ever 20% independent.
No,
ever. I don't think it ever.
Yeah.
10% is a lot. So I really think that that's all I think about it, bro. I just wanted to make that point that I think that that's inaccurate, but they can't figure that out through a poll because those people are just not going to. They're going to say I'm an independent.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with that. So I take the poll with a grain of salt a little bit. I gave it credibility because it was a CBS poll, which would generally skew the other way, and they basically were admitting, as many people in the media are coming around to admit that, you know, and we've talked about this, the Democratic Party is a little bit in shambles, and you saw a lot of that, sadly, in this speech because. You know, I think I've watched these things over the years with Obama and Clinton and Bush and Trump before. And I mean, you're always going to get there's a lot of grandstanding, right? You're always going to get one side of the room cheering and the other side of the room sitting there. I mean, that's kind of normal to a point. But this was worse than I've ever seen from a standpoint of. I mean, for crying out loud, there were a couple times. Like I can remember Obama doing it as an example, and the Republicans on the other side would not clap at anything Obama did until he brought up something like, you know, here's a child that had cancer or whatever, blah 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 blah, and then everybody, you know, joined, and that was a positive. There were certain things that were positive. The speech this week. I mean, Trump brought up a couple things that were like, I could not believe they didn't support the other side. Like, I couldn't believe it.
So I want to make sure that we cover everything. So it looks like we're going to end up all over the place if we don't.
Well, of course.
So
I mean, that's our trademark.
He started the whole thing with I noted some key words when he first started, and this was all within like 1 minute. America is back. Dawn of the golden age. Done more in 43 days than the previous did in 4 to 8 years. Just getting started. Was given a mandate. Won 7 swing states, popular vote, electoral vote. So he started out laying the groundwork for.
Yep.
I've improved things in little to no time. And then he just started running off a list of things. And then we got to the point where they were acting a fool, like you were saying. And the Speaker of the House gave him a warning. And then the Sergeant at Arms kicked, Representative Al Green out.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of a whack job, but yeah. But that was representative of the fact that the Democratic Party is not united. You know, he was doing one thing, you know, like apparently the party said, you know, let's not do that. Let's just sit quiet and not give them anything to talk about. So he didn't listen to his own party. Then you had people with signs. So they weren't listening. They were protesting in a different way. You had, you know, it was all over the place. Clearly they weren't all on the same page. But what I want to bring up is I believe that Trump accurately portrayed these are all the things that he's done. Now, I'm not going to go as far as saying that they were all good things or that this has all been, but I will agree that he's gotten more done in the last guy did in 4 years. I'll agree with that. And I'll agree with they have just been overwhelming with the amount of things that they've accomplished that are tackling and they are attempting to change. That's all true. My struggle is that some of the things that he's doing or that even brought up in the speech, I don't really understand, nor do I support, because I you know, and we can get into some of those, but And as you guys out there in listening world know, we always kind of sort of take the middle of the road. Like I like to look at it from a standpoint of, I don't want to go on my soapbox like I always go on, but you know, I swear every day I go on, you know, whether it be social media or just hear from various friends and stuff, and they're just people are just blah 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 blah, blah on both sides, doing talking points. It's like psychotic almost. I've got friends that have literally probably posted 20 different posts since the speech, both for and against. And it's like, okay, guys, I mean, the rhetoric is getting old. Like I'm tired of just repeating talking points or copying, pasting, and you know, I don't know. So anyway,
yeah, bro, the copying and pasting thing. I know exactly what
it's crazy.
You mean because I have literally been talking to somebody. I had my phone in my hand reading the article, and they were verbatim saying what was in the article. It was scary.
Yes.
And I've had that happen quite a few times.
And my point is that look, you have certain people on the left that are never going to change their mind. And and Trump said it in his speech. Once again, this is one of the things that Trump said that was accurate. There is absolutely nothing I can say or do that you're ever going to clap for or support. Totally true. There are people that are never going to. Now, there are also people on the right that basically Trump can do anything and they're going to support. I mean, anything. Yeah, so it goes both directions. But I mean, whatever happened to like some kind of middle ground, some kind of dialogue. And this is why I start ranting about the Democrats. Like, this is why I get on that Democrat soapbox talking about how the party's a piece of garbage and is unorganized. Because look, guys, if you don't come up with a counter plan, an alternative, some other ideas, then shame on you. If all you're going to do is put out a bunch of talking points and copy and paste shit, you see it in the CBS poll. You see it in the poll. The independent people are swinging more towards Trump. Well, that's what's happening.
It's so clear to me, and I think it's clear to others. Trump's strategy, and even specifically in the speech, was to continue on what he's been doing. Trump has he continues with the strategy of making clear contrast of anything that's a 80-20 issue. He just picks 80-20 issues and picks the 80 and lets the Democrats do their thing.
Right.
And that's what
so let's use as an example, there's now going to be two sexes, male and female. Boom. Now you've got 80% support on that using your example, Phil. And he just picks that. So then it bounces over to the other side. And what is their answer going to be to that? So obviously you've got a bunch of people that are very far leaning on the left that are activists that are, no, there's, 80 sexes and whatever. But the vast majority of the Democrats and the Democratic Party, I think, would agree in a private session behind closed doors that there's males and females. The problem is because Trump picks these 80-20 things, they're going to go on the other side of that no matter what. He forces them into a loss.
And because of that, with this speech, the speech was long, Mike.
Oh gosh, it was one of the longest in history. I heard it was 2 hours.
If you were to say what was the worst and the best thing about it, it would be the same thing, and it was the length of it. That was the strategy to literally.
But damn it, it took 2 hours. It took 2+ hours to cover just the talking points of what his administration has tried to do in the first month and a half. That's a fact. So if you were rating Trump on a success scale based on how much stuff has happened, he's a wild success. I'm not suggesting that This has got nothing to do with whether you support it or not, but that's a fact. He's doing what he said he was going to do.
There is no precedent or president for what he has done. There has never been any president in the United States who has ever gotten so many things done in this amount of time. And I'm including world wars.
Yep. So here's my problem. So let me give you the other side for a second.
Oh, I got a lot of that.
Me too. Because he brought up a bunch of things. So I'm going to give you my hot button issues. The tariff thing, I don't know how else to say it. In my opinion, is fucking ridiculous. Particularly because even he is just like back and forth. I'm getting whiplash with we're gonna tariff Canada and Mexico. No, we're not. We're gonna delay it a month. Oh no, it's on again. Nope, we're delaying it a month. Like I'm not even sure what the game is with this, but I gotta tell you, annoying. I do not in any way, shape, or form think that that's a good idea. This is just my opinion. These are two of our three biggest trade partners who happen to also be our neighbors, who also happen to be growth markets. Tariffing those two makes no sense. And furthermore, to say that it's because of fentanyl, sorry, I'm not buying any part of that. I think that's complete and total bullshit. Total bullshit. So that thing's got me riled up and annoyed. I've got more, but I'll leave it. What do you think of that?
I agree, as stated. I have nothing to add to that. I agree. The tariffs, I'm giving you a feeling, not a thought. I feel like Trump is trying to do some things to give a lasting image to his presidency. But I also think the other half of the things that he's doing is he's trying to settle every score with every person, every country, every
immediately.
And that's what the tariffs were about. He did not like that once he was out of office, how some of these leaders, the day they left notes and they made proclamations where they professionally dissed Donald Trump on the way out the door, not thinking he'd ever return. So that's a lot of what's going on too.
Yeah, it's also that he has in his brain that he's playing this is a Trumpism. He plays this game of threats, and he's hoping that he's going to get some kind of negotiation out of them, which by and large, I will say is working. However, there's too much collateral damage involved in it. So he is getting Canada and Mexico to basically kneel down before America because they're both doing it. They're nervous as shit.
They're doing it, but if you're keeping up with all the news, the international news, Mike, Mexico, Canada, Zelensky, Ukraine, are all having meetings and conversations with other countries. So it's like, let me appease the bully until I can find another bully.
And this is my point. So the world is a one global economy, okay? And in order for us as America to excel, we have to have partners. So you can't be 100% isolationist. So in my opinion, it would make the most sense to try to cut the cord more and more from China and some of the Asian countries and bring it. If I had to choose, I would rather be partners with Mexico and Canada in our hemisphere and potentially some of the other Central American countries. I think that's advantageous. So the problem is like doing tariffs on them is counterproductive to that, right? And you can't, and like you said, Phil, at some point, they're all going to join together on their own team, and then we're SOL because we're not going to excel by ourselves. You have to trade with look, putting a tariff on something that we don't make Doesn't make any sense. Like, yes, if there's two objects and one is made in America and one is made in China, and we put a tariff on the Chinese one to try to increase sales on the one in America, that makes some amount of sense to me. But 90% of the shit we don't even make. We have no capability of making. We don't have factories. We don't have people trained. We don't have people setting up tool and die to set up. There's Elon Musk and not to get on him, but Elon Musk and Tesla. One of the success stories about them was because they basically created all the machinery to make the parts. So this is the thing that America lacks is tooling technology. China and those countries excel in this. So you can't just tariff the shit out of them and then be like, well, just buy American. Well, you can't buy American. We don't even make the damn thing. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not a big fan of this, and I'm particularly not a big fan of him threatening and then giving them a 1 month reprieve, and then threatening, and then blaming it on fentanyl. And like, I mean, I don't.
Well, Mike,
that's dumb.
I think he should do exactly the opposite of what he's doing with the tariffs. I don't think you should make a tariff on any other country. I think what he needs to do, let's say you are ABC company from America and your manufacturing.
Yeah, incentivize.
Right. And your manufacturing is outside of the United States and you're an American company, then in order for you to bring your product back to America, there's a tariff. And I would make it commensurate to whatever the cost plus 20% of them doing it. So it's basically they need to move back if they want to sell cars or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more a fan of incentivizing than penalizing. So I think if you were to set up some
what's the
attractive reason, the difference is, I mean, there is a difference because all this really centers around taxes, right? So if you give them tax benefits or tax waive taxes in order for them to build a factory, you know what I'm saying?
See, I had that built into my comment. I felt like that was just an assumption. But
see, he's doing it the opposite way. Basically, he's like, I just that's why I don't support it. I don't see that being successful. And look, it's hurt the stock market. It has hurt it has hurt consumer confidence. It's going to drive up inflation. It's going to drive up your price of eggs further than it is already. And to me, this is where Donald Trump has a weakness, because if he keeps pushing this shit, at the end of the day, he will lose support over time when people feel it at home. That's his weakness. So if I was him, that's not where I would, some of the other stuff that he's talking about, great. That is no bueno. My second thing that I'm really pissy about, I personally think the Ukraine thing is stupid. And I'm going to tell you why. The Ukraine war with Russia, AKA really it was America fighting Russia through proxy, was the best thing that has ever happened to the United States military, and it was the best thing in all the history of basically the Cold War. We decimated Russia over the last whatever amount of time they've been fighting by basically using Ukraine to do it. So there's a part of me that thinks that the Democrats on this are kind of right, and that maybe they're not right for the right reason. But largely they almost don't want to end the war. And to be truthful, the best thing for America, I hate to say this out loud, would be not to have the war end. Because the longer the war goes on, the weaker Russia gets. They just get piled. They're getting pounded and pounded. We just look, it's cheap, Phil, for us to send used airplanes and used tanks and used a bunch of shit that we're not going to use anyways. It also, by the way, what happened during World War? I mean, our economy boomed because we're building more and more weapons. We're manufacturing. That's one thing that America does make. So, if we're building that stuff and selling it to Ukraine, what are we doing? We're fighting a war with Russia without having to fight it. So I don't, trying to end the war immediately and giving up territory and or policy to the Russians, that doesn't make sense to me. For not for the United States, makes no sense at all. I don't really know where that goes. I mean, he can say all he wants, and I don't buy this. This is another thing. This is another Trumpism I don't buy at all. He could say, well, we're trying to save lives. That's a crock of shit. I mean, I don't really believe that from just about any politician, but I sure as shit don't really believe it from Trump.
Amen. Any politician.
Right?
But in general, I agree with your premise. But the way the world works right now, we have put ourselves in a bind prior to this. China pretty much owns Africa.
Yep.
Most of the minerals, most of the things that we need to stay a power, we don't control. We need a country where we control their minerals. We need them. Yeah. We need them to be a powerful army. We need them to be powerful in technology and industry. We need them. We need it as a pawn in negotiations for other things.
Yep. I understand that.
And what has happened is we have had small little wins, like with the Arabs and with little small countries with little small pockets of oil or whatever we need.
Yep.
We don't have any place that's really just rich with it that we could 50 years from now still be digging up minerals. So I think that we need Ukraine far more than we let on. And I'm glad we're
and Russia, by the way. It's not just Ukraine. Russia has a massive amounts of resources too.
And that's what I'm getting to, is that's all this war is about between Russia and Ukraine. Putin don't care about nothing else that he may say he's fighting this war for other than resources. There's a finite of resources. A lot of it is already owned and warred over. This is one of the last pieces that you can negotiate or fight for. And we need it, especially with a country and surrounding countries, contiguous countries, Mexico and Canada, who all seem to have the same idea of not using our own resources, not drilling, not whatever. So we got to get it from somewhere.
Yeah. Yes, I understand. I agree. So we are, you are correct. We've backed ourselves into, we've allowed through weak administrations, China to infiltrate slowly into, like, as you mentioned, into Africa, into South America, Central America to some extent. Because China has a policy where they just basically throw money at something and sign a deal. I mean, that's what they're doing. Angola is a good example in Africa. They went in, they look, we'll build you roads, we'll do this, we'll do that. But then we want rights to minerals, we want rights to oil, we want rights to whatever. And China's effectively been able to do that. So, but what they've done is basically put countries in debt to them. And, I mean, and on the other side, that is one of the things that Trump is, I think, right about, and has is that he's frustrated because America gives a lot of money out to a lot of different countries and then doesn't ask for it back. And that's the complete opposite of, say, China. China's demanding stuff back. They're making trades. We're like, here's a couple $1 billion and, have fun with that. So there's some frustration. I get it. I get it. America has, in my opinion, I that's the part of the Trump part that I agree with. I think we've been far too generous And you see that in some of it. By the way, I did some fact checking, not to get down a rabbit hole, but on some of the things that when because he spent a considerable amount of his speech on the Doge thing, and and this is where it goes. This is actually the part at which I see my friends posting on Facebook. Are you going to get into
the Social Security numbers?
Well, no, not yet. Oh. But I see people posting, their talking points and what he said that was a lie. The problem is that yes, there are a few things that they put out that were just, when you fact check them, they're just not right, for sure. However, generally speaking, there are a lot of things that are right and are true, and this is a real frustration with most Americans that we're funding a bunch of weird programs or a bunch of weird shit that, I mean, this is why Trump, okay, liberals, listen to me right now. This is why Trump's likable. And and I know that if you're a leaning left on out there, you're like, Mike's an asshole. Here we go. Well, Trump is never likable, but he's likable because, quite frankly, the guy's hilarious. When he's reading off those Doge things, it was almost a comedy skit for a little while there. He's like, and nobody even knows what that means. Like, does anybody know what was it? Sedentary nomads or some shit? What the hell is that? As a nomad, I had to laugh at that because isn't the opposite of a nomad sedentary? So I'm like, what are we funding?
I agree.
So Trump picks these things up, and he's funny. So he comes off as, I don't want to say likable because that's a strong statement, but he's got character. He's got personality. As opposed to, I just keep going back to Biden. Like we sat here with somebody that couldn't even have expression on his face. So the contrast there, this is why I keep harping. This is why Trump is popular.
Okay, so let's get into the guests and the guest introductions.
Yep.
And what I want to briefly say about that is I have three things. One, that has been a strategy since like
all of them been doing that
since the 80s. It's a
yes.
it is a new thing in one sense, but it's an old thing in another. But they've all done it in our lifetime. That's all that's important. So I don't have a problem with that, but it's getting a little too mushy.
Yep.
So that's my first point.
Yep.
With that said, this goes back to people think that he was all over the place, but this was a very strategic speech. This, what I started in the beginning. Every single person that he introduced was also connected to an 80-20 issue.
Yep.
And it made the Democrats look visually like a piece of boop.
Yep.
For not standing up.
Yep. Yeah.
I call
that was my point.
I call this the Make-A-Wish theory.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm using this because I have had interactions with the Make-A-Wish Foundation 3 times. And you want me to tell you why the Make-A-Wish Foundation is so successful versus other charities? It's very easy for them to get yeses. So let's say you had a son, Mike, and your son had cancer and they came to him. And I'm not going by what I think. I know how the process goes. They literally have almost like a counselor that works with you and tells you, no, don't hold back on what your wish is. Whatever your wish is, we're going to try and make it possible. Then they are able to go to people and say, hey, he always wanted to meet you. And half the time they're like, oh, okay, fine. And then they're like, well, he doesn't just have to meet me. He can come to the game and we'll do this. And, I'm with Nike and I'm sure I can talk. People generally, that's like the common denominator amongst humanity is
exactly
the infirmed child.
Yep.
Gets anything they want. We hold back all feelings and all emotions, and we curtail them and we shape them for the happiness of the child.
Yes.
They broke a very basic, general, moral, and ethical thing by what they did. Specifically, I'm referring to, and they did it more than once, but the one that was the tearjerker that hit me emotionally was the cancer guy, the DJ.
Yeah.
They call him DJ.
DJ. Yep.
I'm never excited about a kid that's excited to go to war or law enforcement, but I get it. I was a kid. I know the thought process.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so that's the only thing that I could see a person having some kind of issue with. But you go to the Make-A-Wish rule. Well, I feel this way. I don't want him to be part of this or this, that, and the other, but he's dying. What the fuck?
Right. When that's the part, it just goes back to who the shit is running that party. They make just horrible decisions. And to all my friends out there that are Democrat leaning left people, you got to do better. You got to do better. Otherwise, you're looking at another term for Trump or somebody like Trump, or this is going to go on forever because you guys are on the 20%. You're on the 20% wagon.
Bro, I have, I always tell you I used to play ball. I was pretty good at it. I remember one of the places that I used to go play ball where this is where the ballers used to go on Lakeshore Drive, right? And in Chicago, some of the guys, actually a lot of the guys who are really good basketball players in Chicago are related to a gang or they're a drug dealer. This is just a fact. And so they may have issues with each other, right?
Yeah.
That go beyond basketball and rivalry. And I have literally seen where a big time gang member is at the basketball court and everybody knows that this other guy is after him, right? But he's there with his son. And I've literally seen, I'm telling you what something that's actually happened. They ended up playing on the same team, winning like 6 games in a row and smoking weed on the sideline after. And they still had the same beef. And they actually fought it out. But they didn't do it that day when the son was there.
Well, it's the same. It's mob mentality, right? It's the same as
that's why I kind of picked something that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It's just like I picked drug dealers and stuff like that to make the point that it's kind of like a universal thing. Oh no, that's the kid.
Exactly. Don't do it in front of the kid.
Right.
That's what mortified me, to be honest. And I'm a little surprised there hasn't been more discussion about it.
And just think about it. If they had got up and clapped, there would be nothing to talk about.
Nothing to talk about.
And they could have gotten away.
And that doesn't mean they support Trump.
Right. But what I'm saying is they could have got away with clap for that one. Don't clap for none of the other stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, my God. You would have made your point. And them signs, they look like children.
They look like children. And to be honest with you, that was Trump's. He was on. That was his best speech that he's done. Best State of the Union speech he's done.
They are falling into the trap. They're digging the trap themselves and then jumping in afterwards and then putting the dirt on top of themselves. It's crazy.
As I said, they lost. Trump didn't win the election. They lost it.
With the signs and everything, a liberal person who is still liberal told me that he was disappointed, and I'm going to use what he said. He said, it reminded me when I was in school, in college, and walking through the campus, you'd have all of these weirdos and freaks fighting for different things, and they'd have their little signs. That's what they looked like. And the reason why I'm making that point is that's what's disgusting people right now. They don't want that liberal, do whatever you want, everything is moral image that they go for. Nobody wants that.
See, the problem is, Phil, the people that already are in agreement with it and support it there's nothing wrong with it. The sign, him protesting, we all agree. Trump's an asshole. He's an orange monster. He's a rapist and a thug, blah, 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 blah. That's great. You're not convincing anybody new of this is the problem. And the number that support this is getting smaller.
So, Mike,
you got to try a new tact.
I agree. We're running out of time, so I want to get these two things in quickly.
Okay.
Because it was about the only substance, in my opinion, in the whole thing, in my opinion, is that he made it clear that he wants Greenland, quote, one way or another. It's different to have said that in other scenarios, but this was the address. So it takes on a complete different meaning when he says this statement one way.
Well, because remember, he's addressing the Congress. So what he's asking effectively is to ask them to get on board with it and vote on it. Yeah. And I'm going to throw that into the bucket of nonsense a little bit.
I don't think that's nonsense, Mike. I can't wait for maybe 6 months to a year from now for us to revisit this to see if you're right or I'm wrong.
No. I'm not saying he's not going to do it. I'm saying that I'm not sure that that's what we should be focusing on right now. I believe that he may get what he wants. I really do. And I don't know. The people of actual Greenland might actually vote it. I mean, I think they'd rather be part of America than part of Denmark, quite frankly. But I don't know that that's something to. There's other people at home that have to buy groceries. I don't think give a shit whether we have Greenland or not.
I 100% agree.
So there's a couple issues that he addresses that are. Well, I call them nonsensical because it defocuses us from stuff that he is doing that makes sense, like renaming the Gulf of America. I mean, Phil, this is nonsense. This is nonsense.
It's nonsense, but I don't care.
I don't give a shit either, to be honest.
As long as whatever the decision is weighs toward the Americans, I'm not going to give you too much fight.
Yeah, but I mean, like, really, we're talking about the Gulf. I don't know. There's still things that Trump, and maybe he does some of these things just to annoy the daylights out of people. I don't know. Like, I do feel like he is a bear poker. He's walks around and goes,
set a tone. Americans have gotten to the point where we're always looking outside instead of in our own house.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that.
We are thirsting for somebody who is like America, 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 instead of Ukraine, China, whatever. He's feeding us what we said we wanted.
Yeah. I agree.
I don't know, bro. My lineage goes back to the very beginning of this country. So I'm more pro-American than a lot of people who may visually or stereotypically be connected to being what's considered an American. And so it's a lot of things you're saying. I'm with it.
Well, I mean, look, one of the memes that's going around, like the copy and paste Facebook meme where everybody's like, I'm with Ukraine. I'm with Zelensky. Great. So what are you saying? You're against America and okay, well, then you're an asshole too. I mean, you're an asshole. Like you can hate Trump and you cannot support Trump, but basically saying that you're with Zelensky and Ukraine and I'm anti-US, I mean, because you're really saying I'm anti-US, I'm anti the policy of the guy that got elected by the majority, slippery slope, in my opinion.
Bro, you got a brother just like I got a brother.
Mm-hmm.
When my brother got into something, a lot of times I'm looking at it like he wrong. But guess what? I was the first one swinging with my brother.
Yeah,
and that's I believe that's how it's supposed to be when it comes to you being patriotic. You can disagree.
Which, by the way, Phil, that's an 80-20 thing. I think 80% of Americans are patriotic. So once again, he's forced the Democratic Party to be the unpatriotic party. Well, you're going to lose that. Right?
That's where they lose me.
I mean, look at, not to bring up another topic, but like, look at Kennedy and and he said it in his speech. He's like, hey, I'm a little surprised. There's nobody going to clap over here. This is he was poking the bear for sure, but he's like, we got a Kennedy here. You guys must know who Kennedy is, and here's a guy that is a bunch of his policies. Maybe there are some of them that are obscure and controversial, but there's a bunch of them that are not, which, by the way, Michelle Obama had put in. And they were all for it when Michelle Obama said it, but now he says exactly the same thing. I'm going to take the red dye out of the Fruit Loops. I don't like this guy.
But here's the thing. He didn't say none of that in the thing. When he introduced Kennedy, the only issue that he brought up was autism.
Yeah.
And how it had went to like a few out of every 100 to like 60 or some crazy number.
Yep.
He said that his whole job was to analyze the uptick in autism. What is there to not clap about on that? He's going to he didn't go into anything like I could see maybe if he talked about vaccines or something where there's people.
He didn't.
He talked about something where that should have been 100%. Like, okay, he's going to look into autism.
Yep. Nope.
And Mike,
because Trump said no matter what he does, what his administration or what he says, it's automatically no clapping, no support. He's a rapist thug.
Yeah, whoever their strategists are horrendous. Because
horrendous.
Even like I remember they cried for years leading up to his election about he would start World War III, and now they're crying because he's talking about stopping it from happening.
I know.
Pocahontas clapping for more war. That they should play that over and over and over.
Can you imagine? I mean, he's successfully befuddled and fucked up the Democratic Party so bad that they are now in support of war.
Right.
Who would have called that?
He's playing them like a fiddle, bro.
I know. I get it. It's crazy.
Mike, is there anything else you want to say?
I'm sure there is, and we'll do it next week.
That we done ran out of time, people.
We always do.
I have like about 10 bullet points that I never addressed.
Yep.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on the trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.